Back tonight on In Focus, the DA will hold its two-day leadership congress this coming weekend as it prepares for the 2024 general elections. Contenders for the top job are incumbent John Steenhuisen, former city of Johannesburg, Mayor Dr. Mpho Phalatse and Councillor Lungile Phenyane. And we are getting some analysis on the fate of this party, its diversity, but also how this is going to fare up in the 2024 elections. Professor Bheki Mngomezulu joining us tonight. Prof, good evening. Thank you very much for coming on tonight.
Good evening to you, Butawa, and good evening to your viewers as well.
So maybe as we start, in the many conversations that I've had with Helen Ziller on this channel and any other platform, whenever this question of diversity within the Democratic Alliance is raised, this is the answer. She says, we are the only truly non-racial party in the country, one, that they are the only party that is one-third black, one-third brown, meaning colored, and one-third white. And she says they are the only party with the most diverse leadership of all the parties in the country. My question is in three parts. The first part is that a reality that is experienced by all members of the Democratic Alliance, black, white, colored, and any other race? But two, is that an experience that is being experienced by the broader South African public who might not be members of the DA but would want to vote for the DA? And the third part, of course, is how does this work out for them in 2024?
Thank you very much for the questions, Butabo. To the first two questions, the answer is an emphatic no. I don't have to think twice about that. It's an emphatic no for a number of reasons. You recall that when the Democratic Alliance went to the conference in 2018, it took a decision that neither race nor gender would be considered when people were being elected into positions of power. And I made a statement at that point saying that if you make such a statement and you deny any existence of race in South African politics, you are being naive. That is the position I still hold to this day. Because if you look at the subsequent developments that have taken place in the DA, for example, looking at the issue of Mbali Ntuli, in my view at that time, she was a better candidate, but I'm not a DA member, obviously, so I would have not had a chance to vote for her. But in my view, she ticked all the boxes. One, if you want to diversify a party, we have to make sure that you change people based on their performances, the DA says, but at the same time, we are also mindful of the population makeup of the country. So the fact that you do have black people who are in the DA, who are capable to lead the party, who are in good standing, then it means that you have to afford them an opportunity. And if you do that, we are not doing it because they are women, we are not doing it because they are black, we are doing it because they are capable, which is exactly what the DA says it stands for. But that was not the case. Instead, Steenhuisen emerged victorious. This time around, we have a similar situation whereby Steenhuisen is running for the second term, and he's contesting this position, of course, against Dr. Mpho Phalatse. I'm told that Lungi is either in or out, because there is something very strange with Lungi in the sense that she was nominated for 6 positions. And then at some point I heard that she's relinquishing 2 of them, and then she'll be left with 4 to contest. So that is a story that the DA will confirm. But the reality of the matter is, to the general public out there, the picture that is painted by Helen Ziller is not the picture that the general populace of South Africa or the general electorate of South Africa shares. And you will see this through their statements, and also see that through the actions whenever they are presented an opportunity to do so. Yeah. And then even in terms of governance, the DA will always tell you that where they govern well. And they always cite the Western Cape and say, this is basically reflective of how capable the DA is, which is, in my view, also incorrect. Because I've spent more than 10 years living in Cape Town. I know most of the townships there. You go to Khayelitsha, or go to Gugulethu, go to Nyanga, get a different story from what you get when you go to Constantia and some of those affluent places.
So
that one
it's interesting that you raised that, and you must tell me, I mean, Dr. Mpho Phalatse, one of those who is contending the leadership of the party, says this. She says the DA has got the capacity to lower the ANC's 50% in 2024, either be it via coalition or be it a downright majority, if they do two things. One, stop fixating on being inward-looking, but two, if they stop abdicating their responsibility towards all the people of South Africa as a whole. What does that tell us about what she thinks and why she thinks she would be better placed to lead this organization?
I missed the other part. I lost you when you said the DA must stop being inward-looking.
Yeah, and then the second one is they must not abdicate their responsibility towards the people of South Africa as a whole. I'm picking up on your point. You say you've lived in Cape Town and you've seen the kind of inequity that exists in terms of how townships, for example, versus the urban areas are being served.
You know, Dr. Mpho Phalatse is talking about an ideal situation, which is correct. That is an ideal situation, but that is not the reality on the ground. So in other words, as a politician, she has all the right to be optimistic and say that there is a potential for the party to do better. But as things stand at the moment, that ideal situation does not exist. Then if they were to correct it maybe in a few years' time, not for the 2024 election because it's just around the corner, you cannot do an overhaul of the entire system overnight. It must be a process that should be taken through step by step. And at the moment, I don't think they have enough time to do that. As for the point of the DA having the potential to reduce the ANC below 50%, I wouldn't necessarily dismiss that. Any political party, by the way, can do that. Because even if the ANC gets 49%, that is below 50%. If it gets 48 or 49.5, that's still below 50 plus 1%. So any party can do that. So it's not only the DA that has the potential to do that. The EFF, in fact, can also do that, more especially given that their numbers have been growing up consistently, while those of the ANC and the DA have been showing a decline. So the statements then that the DA has a potential to keep the ANC below 50% is not necessarily wrong, but they must not claim that as the party that has that responsibility which other parties don't have. So how the party will perform next year will depend on what it does from now going forward. But as things stand at the moment, they can only reduce the numbers of the ANC, but they will not replace the ANC unless through a coalition.
Let's go back to the other issue that you were raising on the issue of leadership diversity. Dr. Mpho Phalatse says, well, there's a trust deficit in society broadly, and one of the ways in which the Democratic Alliance can deal with that is to have a leadership that resembles the diversity of the country. Is the Democratic Alliance of today up to that challenge?
They are not. If they were, they would have considered race, they would have considered gender, they would have considered ethnicity, coupled, of course, with the requisite skills and knowledge. Because all political parties are supposed to, they're not doing that, but they are supposed to consider people's skills and knowledge more than anything else. But in the broader scheme of things, you also have to consider the other factors, which are real factors, including the issue of race that I'm referring to. For example, if you look at how the DA prepares for an election, during the campaigns, you'll see a lot of black faces filling the front table, and you'll see the masses of black people filling the stadium. Once the party has won the election, either at provincial level or at local government level, and then they start allocating positions, then the black faces disappear. And the few that have remained, they've remained for a short period of time, and then afterwards, they also disappeared. So then you ask yourself the question, is the party serious about replacing the ANC in a few years' time, or is it okay with the status of being the opposition and then retaining the Western Cape with the potential that maybe in the near future they might take another province? So those are the questions that only the DA can answer.
Yeah. In the couple of conversations with John Steenhuisen that I've heard, he says, for example, that via their agency that they use to conduct these researches, he says they found through that particular process that a majority of South Africans are really not as preoccupied about this race thing as we are making it out to be, media and analysts alike. In fact, he says one of the key messages that resonate with the people of this country is unemployment. People want to get jobs, they want to be working. But two, people want corruption to be dealt with. And number three, people want to feel secure crime. He says those are the three issues. And that's the messaging that they believe is going to be a messaging that appeals to a broader South African audience.
No, I don't think that will be a selling point. The statements are correct, by the way. Let me start off there. The statements are correct, and the concerns they are raising are genuine concerns. And on top of that list, you can also add load shedding. Of course, those are some of the real issues. But all political parties will be talking about that, by the way, including the governing party, the ANC. The ANC will also talk about those issues as much as all other political parties will do. They will be promising that they are going to deal with these issues, and then the ANC, because it is the governing party, it will promise that it has the systems in place to deal with these issues. Then after the elections, they forget. They will only remember on the eve of the next election. Opposition parties have been using that in the past. They are going to use it this time around, and they are going to say that the ANC has run its course. So give us an opportunity. We are going to do A, B, C, D. We are going to eradicate poverty. We are going to deal all the things that we have just listed. But that is not the only thing that people are looking at. The issue of race, I still repeat, the issue of race will definitely form part of this.
Oh, seem to have lost the Prof there in that connection, unfortunately, giving us a little bit of a challenge there this evening, of course, as we were coming to the end of that conversation. Well, that is Professor Mngomezulu then, who has, of course, penned that opinion that says the reality is that anyone who dismisses race in South African politics is naive. We seem to have the Prof back. Prof, before we get cut off again, maybe just a quick last one. Policies and actions of the Democratic Alliance and their demonstration of a commitment towards redress. Is this a party that is showing that in policies but also in its actions?
In some instances, yes, it does that. If you look, for example, at Umgeni, where the DA won an outright majority, yeah, so they've tried to subscribe to what they promised they were going to do to the people, including providing solar panels to people who are needy and so on and so forth. So on that score, I can give them that they've done well on that one. But there is just one municipality. There is a difference between running a spaza and running a mall. Those are two different things, because it means that the skills that you have running a spaza might not necessarily translate into the skills you need when you run a mall. And the reason I'm saying this is because if you look at some of the failures of the ANC, of course, have to do with the fact that of the 9 provinces, it is in charge of 8. Of course, they have their own problems, which we've spoken about in the past. But the DA is only running the Western Cape of the 9 provinces. So you cannot therefore judge the DA by running one province and say, if you were to make them run the country, this is what you are going to see. Because it's just one province. The same happens at a municipal level. You cannot say just because they are running Umgeni, therefore they are going to do the same thing if they were to take other municipalities. But having a vision is very good, and that is what the DA is projecting itself as a party that has a vision for the country. But the reality on the ground, getting the basics right, is where they are losing it. Because as I said earlier on, if you say that you are going to focus only on requisite skills and knowledge and forget about the population makeup of the country, we have already lost that game or that fight even before it begins.